Hey, and welcome to this video on the VanLab Campervan Conversion Kit for the Chevy Express 135-inch wheelbase and the GMC Savana 135-inch wheelbase. What we aim to do in the next 10 to 15 minutes is define the vehicle, so actually talk about the differences and the similarities between the Chevy Express and the GMC Savana. These vans come in two different wheelbases and they have two different trim levels, so we'll talk about a passenger versus a cargo and how that affects the build process. Then we'll go in a little bit more detail on the actual VanLab kit, what it is, what it looks like, how it works. Then we'll talk about the build process, the process of actually how you put your van together and how VanLab can support that build, before going over the design with a full design overview and then a 3D CAD model. So we're going to pull up the three-dimensional model of the van, we're going to spin it around, we're going to look at how it works, some of the features, how it fits together, how you build it, and we'll just explain in detail how the VanLab kit works for the Chevy Express and the GMC Savana. So really critical part of this particular model is the GMC Savana and the Chevy Express are the same van. There's a platform share, so they look slightly different from the front, but actually internally they're exactly the same van. They're totally interchangeable. So our kit fits both. The bit that can trip you up is they come in two different wheelbases. So we have the shorter wheelbase here shown at the top. That's the 135-inch. And then we have the longer wheelbase at the bottom, and that's the 155-inch. Now within this, both the vans can come in a cargo version. So that's a bare metal van with no windows, or a passenger version. And a passenger version would have windows. It would originally been like a minibus, 7 or 9 seats, depending on your wheelbase. It will have the roof in place, plastic trims around the windows. We have a VanLab kit for both cargo and passenger variants for both the 135-inch and the 155-inch. In this video today, we're just going to cover the 135-inch and we'll talk about the differences between the passenger and the cargo. But fundamentally, the design is exactly the same. And all you got to do is tell us which van you have when ordering, and we'll make sure we provide you with the right product. So taking a look at the top van there, the unit itself, the actual kit, with kitchen and bed is 105 inches long, and that sits in the 135-inch wheelbase vehicle. So we can take a look at some images here, and this is the VanLab Campervan Conversion Kit for the GMC Savana and the Chevy Express. So starting with the image on the left, you can see we have a kitchen unit that sits behind the driver's seat. In here we have a 49-litre fridge, we have water storage, 7 gallons of fresh, 7 gallons of grey water, sink, faucet, water pump, full water system in there. And then we have a small cupboard at the back for food and a top access cupboard from the bench top above that for trash or additional kitchen storage. On the left-hand side, we have a bench which has access to a couple of slide-out tables for kind of working from home or just preparing food or anything like that. And then behind that, we have the bed, which is raised with a garage section underneath it. In the middle photo, we can see a little bit more detail about the kitchen. So you can see the fridge on the right-hand side. Above the fridge, there's a pull-out table, which extends the use of the kitchen. It gives you a bit more workspace in the kitchen there. Sink in the middle, and then the cupboard behind that. And then on the right-hand photo, we can see, looking from the back of the van, we can see the raised bed and the garage section. These photos are really good tool to actually discuss the difference between the passenger van and the cargo van. So what we're looking at here is a passenger van, and you can see it has the roof lining, we've got roof vents in there, we've got some lighting in there. You can even see the old seat belts from when it was a minibus or a passenger van back prior to it becoming a camper van. You can also see on the right-hand side, the rear panel there with the VanLab logo, you can see how the VanLab kit is actually cut around the plastic trims. So there's no need for you to remove any of those trims. There's no need to remove the air conditioning unit that sits behind there. Everything stays in, and then our kit just works around it, really simplifying the build. The advantage to the passenger van is they tend to have a little bit more soundproofing, noise deadening. They already have some insulation in the floor. You get the roof lining, you get the lights, and you get the window. So you get full 360 view from the back of the van. The advantage of the cargo van is you probably get a little bit more room in the cupboards, but actually the bed isn't any longer, and the kitchen unit, your benchtop space isn't anymore. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the build process. And this really depends if you have the passenger or the cargo in the first phase of the build, and then after that, it's just a common process. So if you have the passenger van, like this photo here, um, all we do with installation is we actually recommend to take off the plastic trims, insulate behind them, and then put the plastic trims back on. We don't want to cover up the windows, and the roof already has quite a lot of insulation through the roof lining. So that's all the insulation we do here. If you have a cargo van, a bare metal van painted white on the inside, we do recommend that you insulate the whole inside of the van. You'd then do your first fix of. Now, this is running anything through the ceiling or through the walls, anything that you're about to cover up with your paneling in the cargo van or in the passenger van while you have the roof line down, all the trims off for the insulation. You can run those wires at that time. Once you've got all the panels back on, then you install your furniture kit, and then you would come through for your final wiring, connecting up your battery, connecting your fridge, your USB chargers, light switches, all the appliances in the van. Now we have a video on the VanLab wiring loom and how it integrates into your kit, and you'll see that in the description below and also on our YouTube channel. So if you're thinking about a VanLab kit with a wiring loom, it's really worth watching that video to get a bit of information on that. So this is the Chevy 135 wheelbase scan and kit shown inside. The idea of this is just to orientate you to exactly how the product fits within the scan, and then we're going to pull up the 3D model and go through it in a bit more detail. Now, with every VanLab kit, this is how it starts life. We get an empty van, we take a three-dimensional scan of it. This allows us to try many different design iterations in 3D before cutting any wood. We try lots of different iterations, work out the best sizing, exactly the best way to use the height, the width, and the length that we have available. This is often trading off bed size to kitchen storage, seating height to storage volumes, and that is just so much easier to do in a three-dimensional space. And then when we're really happy with the way that we've attributed the space in the van, then we'll go and cut our prototype and then bring a production version through. What we'll do now is pull up the 3D model and run through this in a little bit more detail. So let's bring this up. So this is our VanLab kit for the Chevy 135 and GMC Savana. And as we were just showing with the scan there, this kitchen unit is behind the driver. This bench unit is behind the passenger seat, and then you have your bed unit at the back. This particular model we're showing here is actually the passenger variant, and you can see that there's some really interesting shapes on these bulkheads around the bed at the back. And that's because they are cut around the plastic trims, as we discussed a little bit. So one of the key features of this van is you can't stand up in it. It's quite limited on height. So we've really worked hard to make everything accessible from the seating position. And one of the key areas here is these two slide out tables. So these tables actually slide in and out of the kitchen and the bed area. The first one, and you can be slid independently. The first one gives you a really good work surface and additional kitchen top space from the bench here. Also, if you have swivel seats, this works really well from the passenger side and just sits above the fridge unit here. If you didn't want a fridge unit, or you had like a Dometic top open fridge that you wanted to keep somewhere else in the van, which is quite common, then we have also had people use this area for a porta potty or some kind of toilet system, which you can then pull out and use at night. The cupboard behind it is where we keep the water storage, and the kit will come with the sink cutout already in place, and we have a recommended list of products that are compatible with the VanLab kit. So you know that your sink's just going to drop straight in, the faucet is part of the sink, you know that your water storage is going to fit straight in the cupboard, and your fridge is just going to go straight in the storage area provided for it. On the other side, we have the storage bench. Now in here, we just have storage, and that doubles up as a seating bench for the kind of living mode, day mode. This is also where we often store the battery and our power systems. With our integrated wiring loom, you can see that we have some holes here And these are actually specifically for the wiring loom, the VanLab wiring loom that we have. So we try and keep the run between the battery and the main switches nice and short. So we would often run the battery in here, and then that allows you to put your 230 volt or 120 volt inverter on this top shelf here to be accessible from the front. One of the key design features of this Chevy kit is you can see we've actually angled the front storage under the garage area here. So this panel here and this panel here. And this makes it much, much easier to access these panels from the front of the van. Obviously, it's relatively low roof, so the bed area under the garage is reasonably tight. And as you get further and further forward in the vehicle, it's harder to reach that storage. So it's designed that these front storage areas under the bed are actually accessible from the front, and all the other storage areas under the bed are accessible from the back. We then have the bed. This is an east-west bed in the 135, which we found was just the best compromise between sleeping space, kitchen space, and living space. With the north-south bed in these vans, basically the whole van is bed, and there's not enough room for the other components of the VanLab kit. If we spin around to the back, you can see we have a really open garage section here. We have doors on the rearmost storage areas, and then they become more open as you move forward. And as I was sort of just saying, as you get forward, it's kind of harder to reach the storage there. So we keep them more and more open to make it easier to reach things. Now, there's two options with installing the kit into your van. Either you can do it yourself, you can build it yourself, and these kits are designed as a ready-to-assemble, do-it-yourself kit. Or you can bring your van to us and we'll install it for you. But if you are thinking about doing it yourself, we've put a lot of design time and effort into making that process as simple as possible. And what you'll notice is all the parts are actually labeled. So this part here is part A1. This part here will be part A2. This is part A3, so on and so on. The floor is also labeled. So if I hide part A1 and we go look at the floor is labeled A1. And this floor here will be labeled A2 and this floor A3. The floor also has slots in it. You see these two slots here, and they correspond to the tabs on A1. Now, the interesting thing about these slots is they are completely unique to A1 and they're off-center. So only A1 fits in the slot where it asks for A1, and it cannot go in the wrong way around. Same for A2, same for A3. Then the bench over here, this will be B1, B2, B3, and the garage and bed section will be C1, C2, C3. The whole kit is held together with these blocks. We call them batten. They have two holes in one orientation and one hole in the other orientation. And these blocks are completely common throughout the kit. So as with all VanLab kits, every part is either completely unique, so it only fits in the correct place, or it's completely common, so it can be used anywhere in the kit. If we now open C1, what we'll see is all your pilot holes are pre-drilled for you. So where the blocks go, it's completely pre-drilled. So you just join the dots. And actually where the blocks go, it is engraved and showing you where to go, along with the labeling of the part and any other parts that connect there. So we can see C6 shelf is going to fit here and C5 shelf is going to fit here. Now these will actually be engraved into the wood itself, making it really obvious to where you drop C1 in because it will only fit in those slots in the floor, and then where the corresponding parts are actually going to attach to C1. All the hardware and fitting kit is provided with the kit, and obviously there is some very lengthy and detailed instructions that come with it, guiding you part by part, screw by screw, as you go through the build. So they tend to come together in, if our team are building one, we'll do one in a day. But we often suggest take a weekend or a couple of weekends and just really enjoy the build process. It can take a couple of weeks by the time you've finished your installation, your wiring, got all your appliances and things like that. But it's a really enjoyable build and enjoyable process. So we've tried to make the woodwork side of it as simple and as easy as possible. There's no measuring, there's no cutting, there's no designing at your end. It's just assembling, which then frees you up for enjoying the process and adding the final touches and making the van completely unique and making it your own van. So that's a really brief overview of the VanLab kit for the Chevy 135 and GMC Savana 135-inch wheelbase. We will do another video for the 155. And as I mentioned with this one, it doesn't matter whether you have the passenger or the cargo. Both are available on our website, and just let our team know when you order, and we'll make sure that we get exactly the right kit to you. It doesn't change the design at all, just means it's going to fit right in. We'll put a link to the kit in the description below, and we'll put a link to our integrated wiring loom in the descriptions below. If you have any questions, just reach out to our team. Thank you.